Trump campaigned on build that wall. Are you willing to tear that wall down?
No, there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration.
A new migrant caravan of up to 7,000 people now passing through Mexico, heading straight for the U.S. southern border. But as that massive caravan makes its way north, major American cities are struggling to house the ones who've already arrived and are seeking asylum in the U.S.
We're having to create new space because we don't have any other space we can access in New York City.
South Shore residents responded with resounding rejection.
While this crisis may constitute an emergency for the city of Chicago, it does not constitute an emergency for the South Shore community.
Incoming migrants have overwhelmed district police stations by the hundreds.
This column of humanity heading north from the countries of Central and South America and well beyond too. North to the United States.
This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City.
Because Chicago is the site of the Democratic National Convention. Listen to this community organizer inside of Chicago. And let me tell you what, this guy's saying, if you think you're going to have a peaceful Democratic convention while our people are starving, stay tuned. This is what the man said at City Hall last week.
You're going to have the same office for us.
That's right.
You don't hear any other community talking this plural talk.
That's right.
They strictly speak for themselves.
You got to.
The Chinese in Chinatown speak for Chinese, right?
That's right.
The Greeks in Greektown speak for Greeks. The Hispanics in Little Village speak for Hispanics.
That's right.
Rightfully so. And black people speak for black people.
Oh, yes, sir.
Black Americans.
Yes, sir.
We're not African American. We're not people of color. We're not black and brown, minority.
That's right.
BIPOC. None of that. People, no, none of that. This is about our people demanding the resources, just as you're giving these people, these newcomers who are walking into this country.
That's right. You're right.
And sister's correct. How do you take a new group of people that have paid no taxes, can't vote, and you put them in front of the voters?
I'm not going to pay them no damn taxes.
And so we say this to you, Mayor, Governor, President. If you think that they're that powerful that you have to acquiesce and answer to them over us, then you tell them to vote for you in these next elections.
That's right.
You tell them to support your Democratic National Convention. And we're going to show you how we feel about the Democratic National Convention.
Turn it out. Thank you.
If you think you're going to have a peaceful Democratic National Convention in the city of Chicago while our people are starving,
that's right.
Stay tuned.
You work for us is what's being chanted at local Chicago community schools as they shut down the schools. Listen to this.
Somebody told us we have more than few thousand people who signed a signature here who said no. We said no.
Tensions escalate on the southwest side as the city gets closer to housing at least 2,000 migrants at a base camp in Brighton Park. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Scott Schneider.
And I'm Dawn Hasbrook. That encampment is slated for a vacant lot at 38th in California, but a meeting tonight grew heated when residents divided on the plan. Casey Cronus is live from Kelly High School with the latest. Casey.
Hey, Don and Scott. Well, residents say they only found out about the plan when they saw construction crews working at the site. Tonight, they were calling for transparency, but it's something many of them feel they didn't get when the meeting reached capacity and they weren't allowed in. We could even hear the pounding on the doors from inside.
A line down the block shows just how much residents wanted in on the conversation.
Small protest of South Shore neighbors demanding the energy put into the migrant issue be put into their neighborhoods.
It is a slap in the face that we as citizens of the United States of America do not have the resources and support, but you're going to bring people who are not citizens here in our community, in our buildings that we pay taxes for, that you took away from us. That is completely unacceptable. We are in a humanitarian crisis right now. The Black people in Chicago are bleeding on the streets.
We have a responsibility to make sure that families who are seeking love and support here in the city.
Look at that. You voted for him. You're getting what you voted for. Like world famous rappers are endorsing Trump. Waka Flocka endorsing Trump. Lil Pump endorsing Trump. Like people all around the country from communities that don't normally back Trump are now backing Trump because of these insane policies. These are policies that are, of course, globalist first. They don't like you. They're disgusted by you and your political power, whether it be white, black, or purple. There's a big Vietnamese community there that was yelling and upset about this. And now in Chicago, you can't even be a public official and give a speech in public without something like this happening.
Right? That's illegal. Right now, Brandon Johnson and the Democrats are criminals. They're locking up guys from smuggling drugs and trafficking people across the thing. The drag government's doing it right now. We're going to sue the bosses. We're going to sue the Democrats as civilians because those the agents representing the people they voted for. The agents. I'm a sports agent. If I don't have represent my clients, they fire me.
Pretty amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's happening. It's happening. Sister was speaking raw truth. She literally corrected herself in the moment. She went from saying the migrants are illegal foreign nationals. Real Black Americans are done with open border Democrats. Get ready. Listen to this.
This morning I heard Mayor Brandon Johnson say that the sentiment in the Black community is waning. A lie. The sentiment is not waning. We are not okay with you taking our resources and giving them to people who don't live here. As Mark stated before, you are preparing housing for them. One of the reasons that the city of Chicago was able to close 50 schools was because of the Black Flight. And the reason we had a Black Flight was because there is no affordable housing in this city. It is because the city of Chicago shut down the voucher system so that Blacks who needed to get affordable housing could not. So they had no choice but to flee to other states. But now you found money for the migrants.
That's right.
We're calling foul. And then another thing you said was that the faith-based leaders were helping to bring around the sentiment. We haven't paid attention to faith-based leaders since Dr. Martin Luther King. And guess what? We're not listening to them now. We understand that they are bought and paid for. We understand that you control the narrative that they are trying to speak about. So let me just say this to you. We're not listening to them the same way we're not listening to you. What you're doing is not okay. And let me just say this other thing. Emerson Park is still closed. And our mayor has decided that because we didn't support migrants coming to our park, we just ain't gonna have a park. I call foul, Mayor. You love to stand around and talk about how you're a Black man. That's all you are, is a Black man. And we know that all Black folks ain't skin folks. And those of us who didn't know that, you're giving us a great lesson. So we thank you for that. No, the sentiment has not changed. We are still for Black people. We are still for this city supporting us. We're still for Black people getting the same set-asides that these migrants are getting. Oh, excuse me, not migrants, because what they are is illegal foreign nationals. They are not migrants. They are not coming here illegally. So just because you put lipstick on a pig, it's still going to be a pig. Yeah. So we are not backing down. We were quiet for a minute. I know you thought that the sentiment has changed. It has not. And like I tried to remind people, not only did I support Brandon Johnson, not only did I campaign for Brandon Johnson, not only did I give him my money, but I want you to know two things. Number one, I'm not a fan. I have buyer's remorse. Number two, for any independent candidate in the city of Chicago, any Green Party candidate in the city of Chicago, and any Republican candidate in the city of Chicago, now is your time, because we are done with the Democratic Party. Brandon Johnson continue to support people who are not going to support us. And the Democratic Party here in this city, in this state, and in this country is not supporting us. You got the Republicans on one side and the Democrats on the other side. Guess what? They're part of the same bird.
That's right. With two wings.
So it doesn't matter anymore which party we go with. But I'll tell you this, I'd rather deal with the snake that's outfitting himself of the Republican Party than the snake that's covered up in the Democratic Party.
That's right.
We're not going to continue to stand for this. We're not going to continue to allow our state representatives, our congressmen, our aldermen, and our mayor to let us know that we don't matter. Just like you're going to show us that we're going to matter, we're going to show you. It's going to be a great day in the city of Chicago when a Democratic convention comes here, and then they found out in March that a lot of black voters took Republican ballots.
Look how much African American communities have suffered under Democratic control. To those I say the following: what do you have to lose?
But we do begin tonight with President Biden planning to now build more of the border wall, a major reversal from his campaign for president saying he would never build more of the wall. Tonight, his Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, saying, quote, there is an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers and roads near the border. The numbers are daunting. More than 2.2 million migrants crossing the border since last October in just the last year. Towns and communities along the southern border pleading for help. And now leaders in cities across the U.S., buses arriving in New York City. We have reported on the migrants sleeping on sidewalks. In Los Angeles, dealing with the flow of migrants too, Democratic mayors and governors have called for federal action as well. Tonight, this plan to now add up to 20 miles of new wall in Texas, with money allocated back in the Trump administration in 2019.
No group in America has been more harmed by Hillary Clinton's policies than African Americans. No group. No group. If Hillary Clinton's goal was to inflict pain on the African American community, she could not have done a better job. It's a disgrace. Tonight, I'm asking for the vote of every single African American citizen in this country who wants to see a better future by trying something new like Trump. What do you have to lose?
Top U.S. infectious disease expert says he's confident COVID-19 vaccines are safe and work well. During a White House virtual briefing on Wednesday, Dr. Anthony Fauci said new research suggests that not only are vaccines increasingly effective, but are extremely good at preventing infections. He added 70% of Americans over the age of 65 have already received their first dose, and the end of the pandemic is not far away, with up to 3 million Americans getting vaccinated each and every day.
If we don't stop this now and do some kind of change, everybody's just going to topple. It's going to create a domino effect. Everybody across the nation is going to be forced to get things into their body that they don't want, and that's not right. People move from other countries to come here to escape that sort of thing.
If you're trying to require anybody with a job or anybody who goes to school to get the COVID-19 vaccine, but you are not requiring that of migrants that continue walking across the southern border into the country.
Well, look, our protects more people in the United States.
But it's a requirement for people at a business with more than 100 people. It's not a requirement for migrants at the southern border. Why?
That's correct. Go ahead.
The CDC says there could be a safety issue with Pfizer's updated COVID-19 vaccine. New numbers reveal a possible increase in a certain type of stroke in people 65 and older who recently received one of the updated boosters. This potential risk was detected using a monitoring system that called the vaccine safety data link. Seniors might be more likely to have these kinds of strokes within the first 3 weeks after the shot compared with weeks 4 through 6.
We are seeing that the ability of individuals who are infected through breakthrough infections, namely vaccinated people who ultimately get infected, that they are generally without symptoms or minimally symptomatic. However, it is clear that they are capable of transmitting the infection to uninfected individuals.
The FDA approval of the Pfizer vaccine has many more companies considering a vaccine requirement. Two of the largest employers in South Dakota, Citibank and Sanford Health, they're requiring their employees to get vaccinated. And some other businesses are following that lead. As KOLOLAND's Tom Hansen reports, some people have a tough decision ahead: look for another job or get vaccinated.
United giving an update on the status of the company's vaccine mandate. Phil LeBeau joins us right now with more. And Phil, there are almost 600 employees who have not gone along with that to date, who are set to be fired.
Yes, they will be fired over the course of the next several days once they do the paperwork and everything goes through.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 appears to cause a new side effect for women.
Sudden death among healthy working age people worldwide is skyrocketing. Here in America, it was up 40% during the third and fourth quarters of 2021. Our next guest contends a 10% jump would have been a 1 in 200 year event, but this was 40%. Edward Dowd is a founding partner of Finance Technologies and author of the new book, Cause Unknown: The Epidemic of Sudden Deaths in 2021 and 2022.
So, in your opinion, if your protocol had been established and distributed worldwide, if people had recognized that this is a way to deal with early treatment, you think that the overall number of COVID deaths would have been significantly reduced?
I testified in the U.S. Senate November 19th, 2020. I told Americans under oath that 50% of the lives at that time could have been saved. We were at about 250,000 deaths, based on what I knew. I then testified on March 10th, 2021 in the Texas Senate, sworn testimony. I upped that to 85% of the deaths could have been avoided. We know that because we carried out studies. We did one with Proctor here in Dallas-Fort Worth, where we demonstrated that even the early primordial protocols before the monoclonal antibodies, when we use drugs in combination, were associated with 85% reductions in hospitalizations and deaths compared to fair comparator groups. For death, we use the Tri-County Area and DFW averages age adjusted. And for hospitalization, we use the Cleveland Clinic calculator, which is a very precise estimate of the risk of hospitalization. Then simultaneously, Derwand and Zelenko showed that from our own New York data, and then Didier Rialt showed it from Marseille, France. So we have 3 different areas showing early multi-drug therapy as an outpatient works substantially, and we've had a giant loss of life, a giant number, millions and millions of unnecessary hospitalizations. And it seemed to me, and I've told Tucker Carlson and many others, it seems to me early on, there was an intentional, very comprehensive suppression of early treatment in order to promote fear, suffering, isolation, hospitalization, and death. And it seemed to be completely organized and intentional in order to create acceptance for and then promote mass vaccination.
So you believe this is a premeditated thing that they were doing. So they realized that in order to get people enthusiastic about taking this vaccine, the best way to do that was to not have a protocol for treatment.
It's not just my idea. Now it's completely laid out by the book by Dr. Pam Popper, the book recently published by Peter Breggin, COVID-19 and the Global Predators, We Are the Prey. I wrote one of the introductions. Dr. Leif Leet and Dr. Vladimir Lysenko wrote the other introductions. These books are basically nonfiction. They have 1,000 citations in the Breggin book showing how it was coordinated and planned. Now Bobby Kennedy has his book out, The Real Anthony Fauci. I'm the most mentioned physician in that book. I can tell you that if you want to find the evidence that Moderna was working on the vaccine before the virus ever emanated out of the lab, if you wanted to find the collusions and the operations between the Gates Foundation and Gavi and CEPI and Pfizer and Moderna and the vaccine manufacturers and the Wuhan lab and the National Institutes of Health and Ralph Barrick and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and how all this was organized. If you want to see the Johns Hopkins planning seminar called the SPARS pandemic in 2017, where they had a symposium, people showed up, they wrote up their symposium findings, they published this. It says it's going to be a coronavirus. It's going to be related to MERS and SARS. It's going to come over here to the United States. It's going to shut down cities and frighten people. There's going to be confusion regarding a drug, hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin. And we're going to utilize all that in order to railroad the population into mass vaccination. It's laid out in the Johns Hopkins SPARS pandemic training seminar. The only thing they got wrong was the year. They said it was going to be 2025. Instead, it landed a few years early.
What do you have to lose by trying something new like Trump? What do you have to lose?